I'm on Patterson's Bridge in McCormick County, South Carolina. Of course, in 1780, this bridge was not here. However, this particular spot was known as Long Cane Ford because it forded Long Cane Creek right here. On December the 11th of 1780, there were 500 men camped right over there. It was a cold morning along Long Cane Creek in upper South Carolina, December the 11th, 1780. That frosty Monday morning, the smoke of the campfire was in the air as the 36-year-old Colonel Benjamin Few of Georgia, with some 500 men, were encamped near the waterway.
Colonel Few was on a recruiting mission, since the people of Long Canes were fierce patriots. Many of the Scots-Irish residents had been hanged by the Loyalists and their British comrades in arms.
The Loyalists at our fort in '96, commanded by Lieutenant Colonel John Harris Kruger, a New Yorker, heard of this encampment and the actions of the Patriots by way of intelligence.
Kruger intended to attack the Americans and dispatched the force under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Isaac Allen to do so.
His force contained 200 regular British soldiers, 200 Loyalists, and 50 dragoons, that is, cavalry. They also had with them one field piece, a cannon. They stopped at Whitehall, the plantation of the militia general Andrew Williamson, but the general was not there. Later that day, they camped for the evening. The combined British force was within 3 miles of Few's encampment before he was aware of the impending attack. It was Tuesday afternoon when Colonel Few ordered Colonel Elijah Clark and Lieutenant Colonel James McCall and a Major Lindsay to lead a force to meet Allen's approaching British force, which had marched from 96, some 20 miles away. Clark's force was made up of 100 mounted militia from Georgia and Carolina.
Since swords and sabers were extremely rare, the Patriots were essentially mounted infantry. Colonel Few had ordered them to meet the enemy and sustain them until he could provide adequate reinforcement. December the 12th. After traveling a mile and a half, they met the enemy near sundown. Clark and his men advanced to within 150 yards of the enemy and dismounted.
They first met the Loyalist militia while the regular British troops were forming up. The fight was lively. At first, some of the Loyalists fled, but Allen replaced them with the regular British troops, the 3rd Battalion of New Jersey Volunteers and 1st Battalion of the Lance's Brigade. The Americans realized they were outnumbered 2 to 1 as the regulars plunged into their ranks with fixed bayonet. The Loyalists regrouped and attacked Clark's flanks. Clark and McCall were both wounded. McCall's horse was shot out from under him. Clark sent a dispatch to Few to send help immediately, but help was not forthcoming. The Americans retreated on foot and were charged by the mounted dragoons. The dragoons were merciless, slicing through the Patriots with their sabers flashing, some delivering the coup de grace to wounded on the ground.
Major Lindsay had 3 wounds and lay on the ground as the dragoon captain hacked him up with a sword, cutting off one of his hands. The major, along with 7 privates, were taken captive. Without leadership, the Patriots were overwhelmed. 14 Americans were killed and 7 wounded. With the loss of leadership, the battle was an easy victory for the British. When Clark and his men returned to Few's encampment, they were surprised to find Colonel Few's troops preparing to retreat. The 38-year-old Clark, who had returned being carried on a litter between 2 horses, was visibly upset. Why had Few not sent his men to reinforce Clark as it was originally planned? Why indeed? Did he not receive the dispatch? Could it have been that Few considered the lesser educated older man inferior and did not respect his judgment? The commanding colonel from Georgia had a larger force. He had 500 men. The British had only 450. Few defended himself by saying that intelligence reported a much larger enemy force. However, some thought View's action revealed cowardice, although previously his actions had exhibited bravery. View's retreat was so rapid that he abandoned his supply wagons and 30 head of cattle, which were easily captured by the British. The brief encounter with the British by the Patriots in Long Cane's settlement was a defeat due to an error in judgment by the Patriot commander, and the Patriots along Long Cane Creek would continue to be subject to the savagery of the Loyalists. As more battles were won in the South, the tide of the war was turning. The British general, Lord Cornwallis, was moving his army north, where he would soon surrender to George Washington, and a new nation would be formed. Thank you for watching my video. If you'd like to see more like this, please click here. If you want to subscribe to my channel, please click here. Thank you very much.